Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Aidan, and welcome to the National Timely Action Hour podcast. This is the show where we talk about everything from comic books to Star Wars and everything in between. I sincerely hope that you're doing well today because I'm going to bring that mood down with the top 10 worst comic books I've ever read. This is the 14th episode of the third season, so I thought, why not mix it up and go with something negative? Because normally I'm a positive person, but today I felt like being the bad guy. And so, number 10 is Tom King's Batman run. I despise this run because of how it ruined Batman's relationship with Catwoman and the overall disdain that I feel for Tom King as a person and as a writer. That's not to say that all of his writing is necessarily bad, it's just not to my personal taste. Then at number 9, we have DC Comics Underworld Unleashed, one of the worst comic book events ever. This was a 1990s cash grab by DC, who were trying something new, and it failed miserably. Focusing on the villains is an interesting idea, however, the execution of it is very poor. The only redeeming quality, I would say, is the artwork, and even that isn't the best. So then we have number 8, The Avengers Heroes Reborn. This is a 1996 desperate attempt, death thrall from Marvel Comics to stay relevant and save their asses from bankruptcy, which they had filed for that year. And this was just a last-ditch attempt to stay afloat. And unfortunately, it failed miserably, and I also had to see Rob Liefeld draw the most horrifically monstrous version of Captain America I've ever seen in my life. He cannot draw feet. The only redeeming quality about Rob Liefeld is that he created Deadpool. Then at number 7, we have DC Comics Final Crisis, and the reason why I hate this so much is because it is Grant Morrison jerking himself off, saying, "Oh, I am so great. I thought of this great idea that is all-encompassing DC Comics, and Superman is the Egyptian god Osiris, and, Lex Luthor is his mortal enemy, so-and-so. I'm not an expert in Egyptian mythology, but that is a quote from Grant Morrison, who said that Superman is like an Egyptian god, which I think is one of the stupidest ideas I've ever heard in my entire life. I hate it, and although Grant Morrison is a technically good writer, a lot of his ideas are insane. Then at number 6, we have Marvel Comics Civil War number 2. Again, nasty cash grab in 2016 to capitalize off of the third Captain America movie, which happened to be called Captain America Civil War. And again, mischaracterization, much like the first Civil War. The movie did it better, and this really drove the nail into the coffin of Carol Danvers, who had recently been rebranded as Captain Marvel, although as the third Captain Marvel of the Marvel Comics universe, although the fourth Captain Marvel of all time in our own reality, because of the actual original Captain Marvel from Fawcett Comics, which ripped off Superman, which is why DC sued them and bought Captain Marvel so that they could own him, even though he's a direct ripoff of Superman. And then Marvel was like, oh, well, we're called Marvel, so we want to have a guy named Captain Marvel. And then the whole legal issues arose, and so they made a compromise. So Captain Marvel would still be called Captain Marvel, but his book would be called Shazam. And then Carol Danvers, who was Miss Marvel, the sidekick of Captain Marvel, Captain Mar-VEL, a alien from the planet Kree, he died, and then Monica Rambeau, beautiful black woman from Louisiana, became the second Captain Marvel, but then the white woman just had to take her job. And that's why I don't like how Marvel treats Carol and Monica, because Carol was fine just being Miss Marvel, but no, he had to take the job from the black woman. Anyway, number 5 is Superman Year One by Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. Normally, I like John Romita Jr., but holy crap, man. what were you thinking with this? And Frank Miller, you wrote a few really good stories. Daredevil, Batman The Dark Knight Returns, Batman Year 1, the year 300, which is based on the Greek history. That was a good story. His story Ronin, also good. Everything after that, garbage. I've never read Sin City. I liked the movie, never read the comic, but I heard it's a mixed bag. So that's why I'm not going to read it. But Superman Year 1, Frank Miller's like, oh yeah, I did Batman Year 1, so now I'm going to do Superman Year 1. It is horrible. Man, Frank Miller really fell off post 9/11, and you can tell in Dark Knight 2. Ugh. Speaking of Frank Miller hate bandwagon, number 4 and 3 are number 4 being All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder, written by Frank Miller, drawn by Jim Lee. The only good thing about it is that it's drawn by Jim Lee. And number 3 is Batman The Dark Knight Strikes It Again, Frank Miller's sequel to his masterpiece, The Dark Knight Returns. What were you thinking, Frank? Making this a very, very weird story with early computer-generated art and a misrepresentation of the internet, although it was 2001, but still. And, making horribly, horribly drawn caricatures of George Bush. Not really the best idea. Then at number 2, we have Marvel Comics Civil War. This is the catalyst for why I do not buy modern Marvel Comics anymore. The art by Steve McNiven is phenomenal. Mark Millar, who wrote the story, is a hack, and I hate him. He once suggested to DC Comics that they write a story where Wonder Woman gets sexually assaulted. What the fuck? And yeah, it really ruined everything because the superheroes having to reveal their identities in a post 9/11 Patriot Act world is very stupid. I don't like it. The politics are shoddy and ill-informed, and it's very reactionary. And I get that, 9/11 happened a few years ago, but still, it was a few years ago. So at that point, you've mourned the losses of the people who were murdered, and you've seen the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, so oh, shit's going down. But very, very poorly written. Captain America and Iron Man especially are very mischaracterized. So is Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is made to look like a chump who takes his mask off in front of live television, which leads to Spider-Man being ruined. Because, oh, I'm going to sell my soul to the devil so he has my secret hidden again, but, hate it. Spider-Man would never do that. Then at number 1, the worst comic book I've ever read in my life. That's not to say that it isn't well written or that the art isn't good, but The Death of Superman sucks because a lot of the writing does fall off at the beginning, but it picks up at the end because it's just fighting for 3 issues straight. And, yeah, the Justice League are chumps in it, and it is the cause of the horrible, horrible decisions that DC and Marvel made in the 90s and early 2000s, and overall hate it because of what it did to the industry. Again, a lot of it is really cool, but bad idea. Anyway, that is everything I have for you today. This is Aiden once again. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe to my podcast if you're new and want to hear more rants about comic books or Star Trek or Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who, video games. And thank you so much. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, thenationaltimelyactionhour.com. Hope you have a great day.